Hey guys, I'm Brian. Recently, one of my students came up to me and asked me, "Hey Brian, what's the safest and smartest way to enter a traffic pattern at a non-towered airport?" Now when I say student, I teach mechanical bull riding to people with vertigo at the local pub. I don't want to talk about that right now. I want to talk to you about my preferred method of entering a traffic pattern at a non-towered airport. So if you're a pilot, you know there's 5 approved ways to enter a traffic pattern. Today we're going to talk about 6 of those. The first and dumbest method is the overhead brake. This is a maneuver that's only permitted for former fighter pilots who are trying to relive their glory days in a 180 horsepower RV that they built in their driveway. The overhead brake is a maneuver where between 1 and 35 RVs, all in a flock, overfly the runway at red line. They put on a little air show as they bank up towards the traffic pattern, briefly join the downwind leg like a normal pilot, and then immediately switch to a power off 180. All right, RV pilots, don't get your feelings hurt. I'm only kidding. I actually have done some overhead brakes with my friend Sid. He has a YouTube channel called Because I Fly. You should check it out. The very first one we did, it was kind of abrupt and scared me a little bit, but it's quite a bit of fun. I can see why you guys do it. But I will say this. When I was a student pilot coming back from my long cross country, I was turning base at my airport, and an RV calls and says he's going to do an overhead brake for 1.7. Never heard the term before, didn't know what he was going to do, didn't know where to look, and so stupidly I was really quiet on the radio. I was like, I don't know how to respond to that, and the dude just cut me off, blasted right past me as I was on base, and he was going through final, well, their version of final. Scared me to death. But I can see why you guys do it. It's a lot of fun, but there's no doubt it's the aviation version of jaywalking. The next entry I want to talk about is the teardrop pattern entry. Now, the teardrop pattern entry isn't a real pattern entry. It's actually just a made-up name for when you've gotten completely lost and flown past the airport and realize it's behind you, so you got to turn around and go back. Pilots don't like looking foolish, so if you make a mistake, give it a name. Now it's a maneuver. In order to fly a proper teardrop entry, the first thing you want to do is angle your plane perpendicular to the runway opposite side the downwind leg from which you want to land the plane. We're going to overfly the field. And once you're over the top of the field, this is when you want to start thinking about slowing down. Landing gear, flaps, and all of your pre-landing checklists should be done here. Next, you're going to want to do a steep bank away from the airport. And this may seem counterintuitive, but we're actually going to do a 360-degree turn here where we'll finish in the downwind leg for the airport we're landing at. Once the turn is complete and we're parallel with the runway, we're going to level off. And once we're level and everything is good, this is when we're going to make a turn back to the runway and we're going to reduce our power. At this point, it's very similar to coming in from a base leg. Everything's going to be normal. Fly your approach and your final as you normally would. Start to slow down as you get near the runway and make sure you're on a stabilized approach. And now you just land as you normally would. Fully in control, fully stabilized. Once you're down, hit the brakes. And if you happen to have a house with a hangar in it, you could just put your plane right in the hangar. Or if you don't want to do that, maybe you put it out back if you've got a special spot where you keep you got a lot of options is what I'm saying here. All right, the next pattern entry I want to talk about is one of the more common ones, and that is where you overfly midfield slightly above pattern altitude, and then you turn and join the downwind leg and finish the pattern and land normally. This is really common. I used to do this a lot. So I'm going to give you a better solution than this one. Rather than coming into the airport and overflying the field 500 feet above pattern altitude and descending into the downwind leg, my preference is to come into the airport 500 feet below pattern altitude and ascend into the downwind leg. That way, if there's a midair or some other problem with you and another airplane, who's got the right of way? The lower plane. That's right, that's you. As long as you're below pattern altitude, the airport's all yours. The next pattern entry that I want to talk to you about is one you're probably most familiar with, and that's the 45-degree pattern entry. This is probably the most common pattern entry if you're not a Cirrus pilot. Most instructors are teaching this method, but I'll tell you a secret, nobody's doing it. Let's go to my airport and I'll show you what I mean. All right, I'm at the airport and I got my protractor. Let's see who's entering on the 45. Nope, 32. He's 15 degrees off. 55 degrees? Nope. 80? Not even close. So as you can see, nobody's entering on a 45 degree for the downwind. Everybody's coming in at all different angles. It's all confusing and people are going to smash into each other. So a friend of mine named Ryan suggested that instead of entering on the 45 degree angle, you actually enter on the negative 45 degree angle and fly the pattern backwards. Why? That way you can see what you're going to hit. If traffic's coming at you, you never have to worry about someone sneaking up from behind you and hitting you. They're always going to hit you from this way and you're going to see it coming. You're going to be prepared for the collision. The last pattern entry I want to talk about is called the Cirrus pattern entry. This is when you call inbound as a Cirrus. People are going to get out of the way because they don't know if you're coming straight in from 10 miles out or if you're just going to come down in the middle of the field. It's 2022. By now people have figured out when they hear Cirrus, the best maneuver is just to get away for about 5 minutes and let you do your thing. So now the airport is all yours. You're going to land with no issues. The funny thing is you're not in a Cirrus. You're in your Piper, your Cessna, whatever. Now you're going to go to the FBO and just joke with the other guys about these crazy wacko Cirrus pilots and be like, he never showed up. He probably was at the wrong airport. These crazy Cirrus pilots, they're really good airplanes. All right, stick around for some outtakes, but thank you guys for supporting me. Thanks for sharing and liking and doing all those great things. Thanks to Gold Seal for sponsoring the channel. Gold Seal. Thank you to these Patreon supporters here that are scrolling through my hands. These are some really terrific people who didn't have to do this, and I'm very, very grateful. Everybody else, fly smart, and I'll catch you in the next one. Now, the overhead brake is a traffic pattern entry method that's only approved for former Air Force pilots who are trying to relive their glory days in 180 power hull. All right, landing looks good. We're a little off a center line. There we go. Everything looks good. We're back up. And now we're on fire. All right, we got a little bit of gymnastics and fires out. Plane's good. When I talked about this to a friend of mine named Ryan, he suggested a different way to enter completely, and it's the reverse 45. Fly it from the other degree. What's the opposite of 45? 45. And then we'll say negative 45 degrees. So now we're cruising in our boat in the water. I bet you this thing lets me take back off. And very realistic. Don't do anything that you saw here. I'm not a CFI or an FI or an I. I'm not any kind of I. All right, I've lost control and... All right. Well, if you're going to be on fire, this is the place to be. All right, thanks everybody for supporting the channel. Thanks everyone who likes and shares and subscribes and does all that great stuff. It helps you. All right, we're going to put it down here. And this is because I forgot to put the landing gear down. The Comanche community is probably embarrassed, as is NASA. Hopefully it will stop any time now. It just keeps crashing. I love it. This is why X-Plane 11 is the best simulator out there. Click this link to see the most recent video upload. Click this link to see a video that YouTube thinks you might like. Click this link to subscribe to my channel.